Great. Well, can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
All right. Yeah, I posted in the chat. It's just been one of those days with challenges with Zoom. So I'm just really hoping that I don't get booted off or have to restart, but I'm going to go ahead and share my slides and also say hi to some people. Hello, Kent. It was such a pleasure to meet you in the field when we went out to look at the Astoria Formation. We had that window, right? We just made it before the pandemic limited us all in February of last year. And just want to thank Mackenzie as well for inviting me. And it's great to know more about the NARS group, and I've heard about you, and I'll definitely give acknowledgements to the group for all of the knowledge and resources that members of this group have posted about the Astoria Formation. So one of the virtual field experiences I'll highlight towards the end of the talk highlights just our newest virtual field experience. And I've been the director of education at the Museum of Paleontology at UC Berkeley for the last 8.5 years. Before I came to Berkeley in my current position, I was professor of geosciences at San Francisco State University. So spent a lot of my career, 20 plus years there. I was the paleontologist in a geosciences department, and my research and training is actually in invertebrate fossils, microfossils, did a lot of work in the Monterey Formation of California, looking at diatom microfossils. The Monterey is also famous for its fish fossils, and it's got some awesome turtle fossils as well. So it does have marine vertebrates in it, but it's been great in the context of my position at UCMP to be part of this EPICC, so Eastern Pacific Invertebrate Communities of the Cenozoic, NSF funded project with a dozen other museum partners, and be able to really capture the field experiences that we get so excited about as professional and amateur paleontologists, and then translate that information to public audiences. And this was a large effort. It was a project that lasted 6+ years. And with funding from the National Science Foundation, we became part of this larger network that includes all the iDig Bio folks at the University of Florida. And so within this thematic collection that we highlighted, it was our goal to really improve the curation of our Cenozoic collection of marine invertebrates and partner with other museums along the West Coast, and include a couple of partners from the East Coast, like the Smithsonian and the Paleontological Research Institution, to make collections more accessible. And I'm sure all of you realize this is the trend now, right? So digitize what we have these more permanent records, do a lot of georeferencing, and make it a lot easier to share resources and information, not only with other paleontological researchers, but also with the public and with education audience as well. And so I'll be highlighting some of the virtual field experiences that were part of the broader impacts arm of this particular project. And so some of our collaborators and partners include universities in the Pacific Northwest, so University of Oregon, University of Washington, also worked with Patrick Druckenmiller at University of Alaska Fairbanks, and he is solidly a vertebrate paleontologist, but they do have a modest collection of Cenozoic inverts that he was very helpful in connecting us to, and then through institutions in Southern California and also on the East Coast. It was really a pleasure to be able to work with those groups and share aspects of our collection, and really be able to show that there is plenty of value in doing this kind of work. And frankly, there's a lot of dark data, information contained in museum specimens and drawers that literally hasn't seen the light of day for some time. So if we can elevate the value of these collections through sharing the resources more widely online, then everybody benefits. And it goes without saying, and I likely don't need to go into a lot of detail with this audience or justify why virtual field experiences have so much value. And it's interesting when you think about the first generation of virtual field trips. So when I first started my faculty career at San Francisco State in the 90s, there were we assumed that everyone was going to have the traditional field experience, a field camp, or a series of field courses, which is still the core of many geological sciences degree programs. But in more recent years, we've had to really acknowledge the increasing need to make the field more accessible for whole communities of individuals that may not always be able to access the field. Plus, we want to be able to share, right, the places where we do this work and how important it is. But some of the early virtual field experiences were pretty much just slideshows, and PowerPoint presentations of places to go and see. And now with a range of tools that I'll highlight, including gigapan photography, where you can have billions of pixels of resolution of images, and using the kinds of things that we take for granted now, from Google Earth to the journal maps or story maps that the Esri ArcGIS group makes available for free. So we've tried to put all this together and really ask a lot of leading questions about the places where these epic collections have been sampled from, that in some cases are 100 years ago. I mean, this year we celebrated the centennial of the UCMP. And since I've been there, we've really invested in making our collection more accessible, and also just reevaluating the value of a lot of our different kinds of resources. And with projects like this, it's great to get so many different kinds of individuals involved. So undergraduates at Berkeley that work with us at the UCMP certainly benefit. Our staff scientists, our collections managers have led major efforts of this project. And of course, we really promote opportunities for students to present. We've really benefited from our connections with amateur paleontologists like Kent Gibson, and are just continuing to learn from the base of knowledge that is out there about these collections that are largely exposed in many coastal exposures, and folks from those communities, have long reported on them. And so the map here, you can see the areas where we focused on these virtual field experiences. And so I'll highlight the experiences from the Central Valley of California. So that's the one exception to they're mostly coastal exposures and field trips, but there are old oil fields here in the Central Valley of California, and they're classic Pliocene, Pleistocene sections that represent times when that part of California was underwater. So I'll highlight those, and then talk about and highlight the Parissima Formation, VFEs. I got a preview of the Astoria ones that are soon to be released, and then the Pleistocene terraces from Southern California are in the works. And just to set some additional context of why we really embrace the opportunity, not only to be part of this thematic collections network and uh, really be excited about digitizing our collection and sharing it more effectively online, but for education and outreach, the UCMP was very innovative in the early 90s when the web was in its infancy at really sharing opportunities for education and outreach through virtual experiences. And so the museum was one of the first 100 websites really anywhere in the world. And so a few years ago, when we celebrated 25 years of being on the web, many, 20 somethings and younger, they can't imagine a world, right, without having access to the internet. But, you know, we can start a lot of sentences with, well, I remember when, and I do remember when. I mean, when I started teaching, you know, it was transparencies and chalkboard and everything, which, you know, we still use. But I'm just saying it's nice to just take time out and acknowledge, you know, that the web has truly transformed the way that we teach. And now, of course, when we've all been stuck inside and having to rely increasingly on virtual means of educating folks and communicating, it's easy to take for granted how revolutionary and important, you know, it was and it is and does remain, especially for public audiences to share. And so when I came to the UCMP, I had a long history of working with diverse communities, really trying to excite urban youth about paleontology and geology. And so I've really tried to just bring some of those practices to UCMP and utilize our web resources in different ways. We continue to have a number of really popular websites that receive hundreds of thousands to even millions of page views monthly. So understanding science, about the nature and process of science. We've continued to add and expand these resources, create and showcase more interactive ways that individuals can use tools on our websites. And so that's been exciting. You know, you have to keep up with the times. And when these sites initially launched in the early 2000s, they really read mostly like textbooks online, good textbooks. I mean, we want to be that one-stop shop for things about evolutionary biology or the nature and process of science. So they're very trusted resources. And we have an exciting new direction with Understanding Evolution, which is really taking it on the road. We received funding from the National Institutes of Health of all agencies, but we have proposed a pop-up exhibit where groups of individuals, so school kids with their parents and formal adult groups too, will play an escape room style game. So it's very much in the escape room style. And so you have to figure out this biomedical mystery that infects this group of reptiles. And it's a viral outbreak. It's not COVID. We thought of this long before this pandemic, but you know, it's kind of interesting how things work out. So, and just to share again, additional resources that we have on the web that are still really core to what we do. This is our most recent website in the Understanding series. So it launched just last year, Understanding Global Change. And in many ways, our philosophy has been just bring on the big topics, right? So we've tackled evolution, nature and process of science, and global change is certainly a topic for our time. And even before I came to UCMP 8 years ago, I was on the advisory boards for the first two Understanding sites. So again, I've always been supportive and a fan, but this site is very different from the other two in that it's very graphic rich. It has a lot of different kinds of resources that really encourage users to map the process of global change. So there are these terrific icons and different frameworks and models for developing these different ways of showing and constructing models for global change. And when we post resources related to the virtual field experiences, we often link our users to these sites in case they want to dive more, you know, into the topics and really think about the environments of the past and what all was driving the change and how it impacts what we see. But the real core of the resources that are connected to the virtual field experiences have an intended audience of the K through 12 community. And there are college audiences that use the materials as well, but we really had in mind the pre-college audience and wanting to again show, you know, how from not only a research perspective, we utilize collections and how these studies even start, but what about this science is great, you know, just for the common good of understanding deep time history. But we were pretty determined along the way in designing these resources that we'd provide instructional guides and connect them to the next generation science standards and really start with some basics here. And so with the first set of VFEs that launched from the Kettleman Hills area in the Central Valley of California, we really started with some basic information that I'm sure we spend half our lives explaining, right, to others what fossils are, why they're important, how both the field and museums are key to understanding fossils. And so these are all part of the guide. So I'll just walk you through some still images here, and the URL there is there for these web resources if you want to check them out. And so the way that one would portal in, to these resources is that you just mouse over the sand dollar. That's a very iconic fossil from the Pliocene of the Central Valley of California from these sections. And so, using a combination of Google Maps and high resolution photos, we really try to guide folks to what we see. And when you work in deep time systems and with this formation, because I used to take my classes, my San Francisco State undergrads to these sections. So I'm used to seeing a sand dollar in the desert because we know this area was covered with water for millions of years. But starting with basic questions like that helps bring that wow factor to this environment. Was completely different in the past. It's bone dry now, but it was covered by an inland sea. So there are a lot of those kinds of basic leading questions. And so using the Esri story maps is a really terrific way to combine still photography, aerial images from Google Maps. We have video links and interviews with scientists. And we bring our students into the frame so that they can also be shown as being real core contributors to this as well. So we went all out with these resources. They certainly take a while to produce, and we're still fine tuning some of the ones that are even posted now, and then pushing out the Astoria Formation ones, as well as the marine terraces from Southern California. But here's an example of the Gigapan photographic images. And so these are embedded in the story maps for Kettleman Hills, but also if you go to the Gigapan site, you go to gigapan.com or just Google Kettleman Hills Gigapan, you'll see these images. And it's, can be easy for us as professional and avocational paleontologists to look at an outcrop and pretty easily see there's something there. I mean, if you're Kent, right, you spot a skull from way down the beach, but for a lot of us, we're sometimes just trying to figure out, what it is we see. But I'm used to looking at this section. So I see, okay, well, there's some sand dollars here and where this coin is. There's some bivalves, but, we walk the user through this. And so when you're on the live site, you can zoom in and out. And yeah, and it's amazing just the scale of resolution. And so we keep asking, more and more questions from the 10,000 view look to the 1,000 view to right on the frame. This is what you see. And so there are just a lot of great ways to share how it is that we approach outcrops, looking at scales of detail, and really trying to zoom in on features. And so we've have some assessment results from this, and people are often, teachers, completely surprised that there is as much at that outcrop that look like a bunch of brown rocks and maybe some disc shaped things. But I think it's our responsibility and certainly our goal with this to show what it is that we map and describe. So have a lot of fun with these. And so shifting from the Central Valley of California to the coast, this is a section just south of where I did my graduate work at UC Santa Cruz, although I was more focused on even finer grain rocks than this. But the Parissima Formation is mid-late Pliocene, and it has, in addition to the invertebrates, it's got some great vertebrate fossils, whales and seals, sea cows. And I was just there the other weekend. You need a good low tide to see, and we've really benefited from input from some teachers in the area that are advocational paleontologists and help us get to the best sections, and just really have approached these VFEs with a range of guiding questions that invite examination and description. And there's guides for students as well as teachers so that they can really make a lesson out of this. And so sometimes they stretch out the activity over a week or maybe do it all in one day. And it's sure nice for the local communities here. Many of the kids that live in this part of the coast know about this section. And the city of Capitola, that is where this is in Santa Cruz County, does not discourage collecting. So there are lots of collections that have made their way into local homes here. And so it's nice to be able to provide the backdrop. And we do have two middle school instructors that are part of our advisory board for review of the VFEs, and they know these sections well. And then we make full use of the collections. You know, there are a series of photographs uh, of individual specimens that we have in the drawers. And so we talk about what we do when we return to the field and all of the kind of detail that is essential when you're exploring the information from these cliffs. And we look for modern analogs too, and it's certainly fun for a lot of school kids to think about what they might be seeing on a modern beach and how that compares to what they may see, what we interpret as an organism, how an organism from the past lived. So needless to say, there's a lot of really great things that one can do with additional resources. And the way we've approached these VFEs, there's typically a virtual field experience that's fossil focused. There's one that's focused on the sedimentology and stratigraphy of the area to provide that backdrop. And then there's a VFE that's focused on the overall geological backdrop and environment. So we can get that foundational knowledge out about plate tectonics or coastal processes. So it's a really nice way to have kind of a full geological lesson, and really invite discussion about changing landscapes, geological hazards that we certainly know are prevalent in a lot of coastal areas along the West Coast. So it's full of a fair amount of detail that again can appeal to even college audiences. And there's supportive guides, as I've mentioned, that help frame this and connect it to the next generation science standards. And that was recommended by some of the teacher reviewers as well. There's an illustrated glossary, so we certainly don't want to take for granted that individuals are familiar with all the language and terminology that is so common in our discipline. So we had fun doing that as well. And there are video assets, and honestly, there were some parts of the VFE creation of the formation of these modules that got a little out of control. And I kept thinking, we really probably need to end this now, you know, and go on to the next one. But there's so much information, you know, we get excited, we invite others to contribute. And so we had a videographer this one year. And so there's some additional assets, including a tutorial on the Gigapan. And, you know, I joke now with my partners from the Paleontological Research Institution. It's like, no wonder this took so long. We kept adding things, but you know, that's what we do, right? There's so much information. And this was an add-on too, but here's some individuals that have been really essential to helping us understand these Pliocene sections in Santa Cruz County. So Wayne Thompson here is a a teacher, also a geologist, regularly goes out to the cliffs. And then Chuck Powell is a retired paleontologist from the USGS who has a number of monographs on the mollusks from this area. And so we, again, don't want to miss opportunities for our audiences to hear from truly, you know, the experts in the science, and then local educators who teach from these sections. And we're super excited that these are almost ready to go. So the study of the Astoria Formation. So, oh, this should say February 2020, because we just completed the field work before the pandemic hit. And let me see, Kent, oh, this is you here in the red in the back. Okay, so I'd heard so much about Kent. It's like, finally I get to meet this man who knows these beaches like the back of his hand. Is such an incredible collection that we were able to see. And so with the Oregon Coast section, and we're so grateful for our partnership with Edward Davis at University of Oregon and his graduate student, Kellum Tate Jones, who designed the fossil-focused virtual field experience for the Astoria. And we used a combination both of the Esri story maps, but also using Prezi as a presentation platform. And these aren't live yet. I'm just showing these screenshots because they're still in review. But the VFE that Kellum designed is really terrific. And she took a perspective that was more taphonomy focused, which was very fitting from the section. It does, of course, highlight some of the amazing collections that you find at the museum there at the University of Oregon Geosciences Department, but it's great to be able to incorporate, all that we know about what affects an organism from the time it dies to the time it's preserved, and then we all see it, in a museum. And so there's some great things here and parts of the collection I'm sure some of you are familiar with that is there at the University of Oregon. And so really sharing this in kind of a storytelling mode is a way of inviting curiosity and being able to transfer the knowledge that we have and excite people about all of the different kinds of individuals that we need to study this, from the fossil preparators to the folks we partner with to collect, all the tools that we use, and who all gets involved. And of course, the VFE wouldn't be complete without some of the fossils from the crab concretion. So we place some context for this, just really relying on previous publications and the knowledge of others in order to share and continue to further, what it is that we know. And we are super excited to learn more about the NARS group input on this and highlight some of the resources that you have on your site. And this Mackenzie knows the My Fossil group at University of Florida that's connected with the iDig Bio group has been so terrific at really elevating opportunities for avocational paleontologists to all gather and share what they know and also inform the research. And so we link to the NAR group site, and we're excited to do that. And yeah, I think this is my last slide, just thanking the folks I work with and all of our partners, and the EPICC project and the virtual field experiences. It's just one element of this growing body of resources that continue to build our online platform. And so if you find yourself on the UCMP website, you can see a lot of these resources. Okay, I think that was the last one. Great, and Zoom didn't freeze. I'm still here with you. You heard me okay? All right. Well, thanks again. And just happy to be able to share with you all what we're up to, and happy to answer any questions about any of the resources.
Lisa, are the fossils that you show are from all the formations are the individual fossils available online?
Yes.
Images of them?
Yes. And so I know that most of my URLs shown for the website were to the virtual field experience part of the website. But if you go to the main EPICC website and it's linked from the virtual field experience part of the site, yes, you can get to the catalog. Absolutely. And so one can see a range of images, and not every single one of those 1.5 million fossils that we digitize has an individual photograph. Clearly sometimes it's groups of photographs, or it might be the georeference to it. But yes, the catalogs are in much better shape these days as a result of this project. Mhm. Yeah.
So what
Thank you.
what brought you to deciding to include the Astoria formation among all the other ones that could be done?
Right. And frankly, I mean, it's not as fossiliferous as some of the other uh, fossil formations in the Cenozoic sections from other states, or certainly in other parts of California. But when we surveyed the museums from this part of the country, from the Western states, and just inquired about what fossils they had, and if there were gaps or challenges with the collections, if they could benefit, if they felt their collections and their personnel, their students could benefit from being part of the EPICC project, then the decision was made. And yeah, and so the organ group felt that, given that much of their expertise is on the vertebrate end of things, and they do have, a pretty awesome collection of invertebrates from the Astoria, that it seemed fitting to be part of the group. And the NSF really encouraged some of the smaller collection partners in this. And so, yeah, that's how we came to it. And Edward uh, and Samantha's wife's partner are both Berkeley alumni. And it seems like, you throw a stone and any direction, you get a UCMP alumni that continues to be part of the network. And so when they got wind that we were looking to really try to improve the accessibility of the Cenozoic collections on the West Coast, they were all in.
So the follow-up question to that then would be, so me personally, I have a pretty big collection of the Astoria formation fossils.
Okay.
That was my focus when I started collecting, and have been
Yeah.
doing that for 20 years. So I haven't donated my collection yet to U of O. They don't have it. I do, but it's going to go to them eventually should they want it.
Great.
At this point, is any of that material important to your project at this time, or is what Kellum's doing kind of that, is it like consolidated to what she's doing now? I can't think of the right word I want to use, but is she kind of done with what she's doing, or are you looking to expand this?
Well, the core of the fossil focused virtual field experience for the Astoria is close to being done, but we've added on elements to the VFEs even after they're published. That happened with the Parissima formation in the Capitola, Santa Cruz area that I mentioned. We realized we had this opportunity to capture the experts, so we added video. And there were some additional collections at the Santa Cruz County Museum that we photographed. And so we can link additional resources. Yeah. If you have that, whenever you're ready, or whenever material, gets transferred to UNO. We have completed the funding phase of the project, but the education outreach team at the UCMP, which includes a web manager and a science writer, we're often making updates to our resources. Yes, so we could always add, on information, because it's a benefit, to our audiences for sure. Mhm.
Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions from the audience? What do you guys think?
I'm just curious, Lisa, when this next project was going to be done.
Well, it's in review now, and we gave the reviewers, Kent, you mean the Astoria
Right, yes.
unit? Yeah. So we gave the reviewers until actually just 2 more weeks, April 20th, to finish their reviews. And so we'll make some corrections. And yeah, so we think around May 1. I mean, there of course will be edits and suggested changes here and there, but we don't see them as taking too much time. Yeah, so this spring for sure, we'll add them on.
And so that will be available on the UCMP website?
Right. We
Okay.
already have a place for it. Astoria's highlighted as coming soon. I guess that's been up there for a little while. But yes, so it'll just be posted along with the others. So that should be very soon.
Yeah, I saw a picture of Wayne Thompson in there. I went down to a conference in San Francisco a couple of years ago.
Yep.
And so I thought, I'm just going to go down to Capitola and go look down there. And guess who I ran into?
Guess
There
who
was
you
Wayne
ran
down
into?
there. Yeah. But before I found him, I was down the beach and I found a great big whale skull sitting there. And
Yep.
I was thinking, man, if I only had my hand
Your
truck.
tools, I know.
But yeah, that was a bummer.
Okay, yeah, it is a beautiful section, and I was just down there 2 weekends ago. Of course, Wayne was there, so we typically try to connect when I'm down there. But yeah, it's really can be beautifully exposed, and there's been some new rock falls, although we haven't had as much rain this season. But those cliffs are still pretty unstable. So. Great. Well, yeah, you two are kindred spirits, Kent. So I'm glad that you had a chance to meet him on the beach there.
Yeah,
You have to come
I
down.
had to walk up to him because I saw he's chipping away at something. I thought,
Right.
well, turned out he was already my Facebook friend. I didn't even
Oh,
know.
see, right.
So that was kind of cool.
Uh-huh. Great. And Kent, when were you last out at the beach?
What time is it?
Okay.
I got back off the beach about 5 o'clock.
Oh, okay. And what was your most recent find? I had to get out of Zoom for a minute when you were showing your most recent fossil. So what were you showing?
Well, I had a little turtle scoot that I found just last week, and then a new nautilus. I've only got 2 nautilus in my collection. They're just not very prolific down here in the Astoria. So, but I've got a lot of stuff. I put 300 bones in buckets already, and I probably got close to that many more now in my back of my pickup still.
Okay.
So yeah, I think I found 8 or 9 pieces of bone yesterday, and
wow,
just been kind of a slow year though. For really good stuff. I mean, I found a lot of stuff, but I mean, it's just the really good stuff is a little elusive.
All right.
He's not exaggerating. I saw it 2 weekends ago.
It's
or 2 weeks. Yeah, there's a bunch there.
I love it.
Jerry, go ahead with your question.
Hi, Jerry.
You got to turn your mic on though.
I'm doing.
There you go.
I'm close to it now.
Okay.
When you were first talking about some of the things that you've done, and especially regard to microfossils, and in microfossils, and Greg is aware of some of the stuff I'm looking at, and this is like Triassic Carnianorian reef system, and I'm looking at some residue that. And I'm trying to identify some of the skeletal residue. And this is particular stuff. And I'm thinking that the diatoms, perhaps radiolarians, and I know diatoms have some area of, well, you didn't see them.
Yeah, diatoms are more Jurassic and Cretaceous and younger, but yeah, but the record of radiolaria stretches back, but it has to be these right kinds of marine environments.
And yeah, and I guess what I'm asking is at UCMP, or perhaps there's another area that you may point me to that I can do some more research? Because I'm looking at, had a friend out of Cutsville, anyway, it's up in New Jersey, which is an unusual university, who did some sims of about a millimeter thickness of a layer, which I said had to be algae. And I wanted to try to identify, and man, I've got some really cool micrographs, which are sims and some other stuff. I'm just trying, I'm constantly looking, but I can't find anything. It's like I can go to the net, and it's like, is there a decent resource at UCMP or someplace else where I can look at diatoms and radiolarians and these microscopic?
Do you have photographs of?
I do.
The layer? Okay, so I'm just putting my email in here in the chat if you want to send them to me.
Gotcha. I shall.
A look and.
That's awesome. I was hoping you would do that.
Okay, Jerry. Well, we get some odd requests sometimes. You know, everything's a dinosaur egg, right, or a skull for the photos. So as long as it's not, you don't think it's.
I love dinosaurs, but this is a whole long.
A whole lot. Okay.
Big skull with this little bitty piece of a skeleton. So thank you.
That's great. You're welcome. So do you all meet monthly? And then you typically start the meeting with the show and tell, which was great. I kept looking around. I have some fossils at home, but I was like, I don't have anything to show. Wish I had. I was showing slides, but like, I'm gonna have to bring.
NARG was formed back in 2004. And the original plan was to try and figure out what to do with our fossils along with finding new places. And it's evolved over time, using the term, pun intended.
Yep.
To try and do public outreach and find citizen science, and individuals come up with their own personal interests. Like Jerry's got the microfossils and Kent's got the vertebrates, and Bruce, who you probably have heard of through the grapevine, he is the crab specialist. And Bruce, before she goes, you should show her some of your specimens. They're in the Smithsonian as well. And so we're just kind of developing this. And so our meetings normally are at the Rice Northwest Museum of Rocks and Minerals, which is up in Hillsboro. But our membership, the people who visit the meetings, travel up to 200 miles to go to our meetings. 150 miles, hour, 2 hours to get there, along with people who are close by as well. So our group is really well spread out. And since COVID, we didn't miss a beat. We've had our meetings online, and we typically start with the show and tell. Then we have our guest speaker, and then let them go, because usually they're East Coast.
On the East,
thanks to Mackenzie and his connections with the University of Florida and some other folks we've had. And so then we'll have a short business meeting and check in on our treasures report and do the minutes. And we talk about search and rescue projects that we do. So Greg and others find opportunities to help rescue fossils, whether we've discovered them or somebody else has. The project that's being planned for this summer is looking out at the Hudspeth Formation. Dr. Vitalik from U of O has found a dinosaur bone. And so we want to go and help explore the area a little more in depth to see if we can find additional pieces of float and bloats, sink dinosaur pieces. And so we'll help out with U of O on projects like that, and other things. And then just try to explore the area and find new things. I think our group is up to 8 or 9 new species that have been identified. Universities do the research, but we've been able to find things. And so it's about 15 years of our focused work trying to make a difference with the science community. There's 3 or 4 of us that are teachers, 2 currently working as teachers I'm in middle school, Dave's in high school, Greg teaches college. And so we have that, and then all sorts of, we have retired geologists and just like almost every walk of life. And so we all bring our personal experiences together to see what we can do. And we host a fossil fest at the Rice Museum and it's kind of oriented more towards kids, but we have
Okay.
everyone from university professors come in, and there's sort of this upper level discussion that goes on. And then we have kids there, and they can break concretions and learn to prep. And so we do
Mhm.
that in August on a Saturday, and it's free to the public. And we have 600 or 700 people come through when COVID's not in effect. And so that's one of our outreach things. And we also are involved in other festivals where we demonstrate, but we don't necessarily host them. So it's kind of growing. We've got a membership annually of around 100,
Great.
online 20 or 30 people. Well, about around 30 attend this, but our meetings are 30 to 40 people as well in person. So it's not a really huge group, but we're really involved in a lot of things that are going on, and we're starting to make a difference, and that's what we have a lot of fun doing.
Excellent. And yeah, you clearly have a lot of expertise and real commitment to preserving fossils, sharing information about them, and and getting others excited about the work. So, well,
Other
great.
questions?
Oh, sure. A few more
Does
questions.
anybody have any other questions?
Yes, are there any future plans to do? I mean, I know the funding has ended, but is
Right.
there any future plans for like the Kesey Formation or Toledo, some of the older Cenozoic
Older
invert formations
Cenozoic.
in Oregon?
Well, not right now, but on the subject of older periods of time, we're actually going to join the Cretaceous World TCN. So there's a thematic collections network that is centered with the University of Kansas group, with the Cretaceous Interior Seaway. So we're going to do some VFEs with
Okay,
them.
cool.
So we're excited
Yeah.
about that. And who knows? I mean, it's of course been no surprise in this past year how many resources have shifted to an online format, even ones that weren't intentionally, designed that way. And so I've just been keeping my eyes open for additional sources of funding to keep growing, the field experiences. And Mackenzie, there's so many great ones we could do in Florida too. So
Right. Yeah.
yeah, let's keep making our way there. And yeah, so we'll see. I know, with the iDig Bio Group, there's never complete certainty about, the how many more years of funding and all that. But for now, it seems that the NSF is continuing to invest in, digital resources and growing a community of departments and museums that are really dedicated to doing this kind of work. So I think the future looks pretty bright that way. Mhm.
Good. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, great. Well, thank you again for inviting me, and really great to know more about the group, and look forward to staying in touch and to posting the resource availability. So I can send emails to a number of you in this group when they're available, when the Astoria ones are
I'll
ready.
send an email to you
Yeah.
personally, and then
Okay.
other than, I know you're already in touch with Mackenzie and
Yeah.
Kent, I'll get it out to everybody else. And I presume if other people have questions that you're
Yeah.
open to emails from them, and so I can send it out to our membership, and we'll post this presentation on our website. It'll be a YouTube post, but
Okay. Yeah.
we'll learn about this. We have a lot of members who I'm sure will watch it and enjoy this as
Okay,
well.
thanks. And and I saw the other ones posted. It was good to see. You had Kirk Johnson a few months ago, and very informative. So terrific. Okay, well, wishing everyone a good second part of the week, and stay safe and all that. And look forward to staying in touch.
Yes, thank you very much
Thank
for
you
your time.
again.
Really
My
appreciate it.
pleasure. Take care.